What's crack-a-lackin', kids? Fix that. As kids say, what's crack-a-lackin'? I said that already, didn't I? Day 9. Day 9 of the quarantine. We're surviving, hanging in there, working, and making videos. That's it. That's all we're doing. That's all I'm doing. Watching Lego Masters. Getting that Wrestling with the Past episode up and running for you. Putting together my G.I. Joe base, my headquarters that I got last week that I'm loving to death. Staying away from the news. Want to say what's up to the newest YouTube sensation. The newest YouTube personality has hit the air. The greatest kickboxer in the history of professional kickboxing, Bobby Campbell, and his greatest son of all time, little Rocky Campbell, have jumped into the YouTube world, ladies and gentlemen. And I implore you to go check them out. Rocky and hang on a second. I want to get this one right. We're looking at Rocky and Bobby Campbell's retro collectibles. Yeah, that's right. And if you saw it on the Facebook, if you follow me on the Facebook, I put the link up. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see a little picture. Can't really see the words, can you? This is kind of pointless, isn't it, of me to do this? But go check out Rocky and Bobby Campbell's retro collectibles on the YouTube. Type it in just like that. I'll say it again. Rocky and Bobby Campbell's retro collectibles. And just watch this awesome dude and his awesome son. I think this kid is like, even, is he 2 yet? Jackhammer, is he 2? I'm not sure. But I mean, this warms my heart because you guys, some earlier material from me, you saw how I would bring my boy down here, and we did a couple of shows together, and then we did the pin, whatever that thing with the pin I was doing. He was on those shows, and he did his own little show, and I've basically been sharing this hobby with him since he was, around Rocky's age, around 1.5, 2 years old. So it's so fun to see Bobby doing that with his son. That is awesome. Go check them out. Go give them the view that they deserve. Just don't watch my stuff first, then go watch the Jackhammers. Right? That's how we do it. So congrats to them. Want to say what's up to them. Hello. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Staying safe. Staying home if you can. And we're on day 9 of the New 80's Revolution self-quarantine. So, we're just doing what we do. First, the video that I put up yesterday about when did childhood end, or first of all, I had to change that title, okay? Because when I put up when did childhood end, that was the original title. It got flagged by YouTube because it had the word child in it. So we had to change the title to when did the 80's end, but if you listen to the video, it's more about when did childhood end. And since I'm saying childhood right now, this video will probably get flagged too. But anyway, man, this head is so tight. What I want to say, the comments, I put the question out there to you, and I gave you some homework. I said, instead of watching CNN, write me an essay on when childhood ended for you. And man, some of the answers, some of the comments just it blew me away. Some including some very personal tragedies and some losses and some joys and fatherhood and all that great stuff. So um, that was awesome to read. So to all of you, uh, especially you, Carlos, and I don't have your. Hang on, let me find you. You know what I always say. Where are you guys going? Right? We're live. You don't have anywhere to go. We're quarantined. Who's my man? What did he write? Let me see. Where is he? I just want to call this guy out specifically. Carlos R.C. D'Amatos. Right? Hang on. I wanna read this. I think it was Carlos. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, all of your answers are tremendous, but yeah. Anyway, go check them all out. Carlos R.C. D'Amatos. I don't want to take any time. All the answers, all the comments, all the feedback on that question, when did childhood end? Just awesome. Blew me away. A lot of the answers, all of the answers just blew me away. Um, and you guys did exactly what I wanted you to do. You put some thoughts, put some effort into it. So that's what we're going to keep doing. That's my new direction for these daily quarantine shows. Um, on the other side, what you guys are more used to from me, we're going to do a wrestling with the past episode is almost ready to go. It's basically week 3 in January, so we get the January 21st episode of WWF Championship Wrestling. We're going to put that up. And then there's either one more or then we jump right into a house show. So I'm pretty sure there's a house show in the middle of January 21st and January 28th. I think it's like maybe January 24th, 1983. There's an MSG house show that we're going to do. So we got one more episode of Championship Wrestling, that 1 hour jobber versus superstar type stuff. And then we go right into the house shows where we start to see some main event quality matches. And I'm looking forward to that. Also, your answers to the Saturday night's main event question that I put out there, the Saturday night's main event memories show. Those answers were amazing as well. Most of us all seem to be cut from the same cloth, because some of the things that I thought were just like silly and exclusive to me are things that you guys did as well. The countdown, the countdown from the moment you woke up on a Saturday, waiting for 11:30 to roll around. So it was cool to read your views on that too. Um, today for the next, I don't know, 22 minutes or so, we're going to talk about video games of the 80s. I am doing this live again. Hopefully the sound is coming out okay. If it's not, if I go back and watch this and it's tinny and robotic, we're just going to go back to the camcorder again, and I'll have to upload these, which takes about 2 hours. No big deal. But I like to just do it live so it gets right out to you guys, because as you're watching this, I'm doing it here in real time. Video games of the 80s. Now, I will be the first to tell you that I am not a gamer by any means. I am not good at video games. I have 420 plus Nintendo games sitting right over there, but I'm not good at any of them. In my whole life, I've probably only beaten like 4 or 5 Nintendo games, and I'm counting Contra with 30 lives. But I did beat Double Dragon, and I did knock out Mike Tyson. So those two I'm very, very, very proud of. Of course, I've beaten Super Mario Brothers. Part 1, of course, never 2 or 3, never even close. And I beat a game called Jackal. a tank game, which was it was actually an awesome game. And I beat the Little League World Series. Yeah, which basically means I won a tournament in the Little League World Series Nintendo game. And that's it. Those are the Nintendo games that I've beaten in my life. That's it. And they all happened within the past like 4 years. I think I beat Mario when I was a kid. Since then, they just happened in the last few years as I started collecting all these games. Um, so I was never a gamer at all. But in fact, more of my fondest memories actually come from arcade games. So I'll talk about two different branches here. I'll talk about the home arcade game, and then I'll talk about arcade games. Um, I actually loved arcade games, and I got to experience them a couple of different ways. I was on a bowling league when I was a kid. We're talking 8 years old. And the bowling alley that I bowled at, this was an after school league. So at 2 o'clock, 2:30, the bowling bus would come and pick up all of us St. Pius elementary school bowlers. And we'd grab our little bags and our little 8-pound balls, and we'd hop on the bus and head to uh, Marcel's Olympic Bowl in Rochester, New York, which is now a parking lot. Um, we'd go there and we'd bowl our 2 games of bowling. We'd get the bus and go back home. But after the bowling ended, while we were waiting for the other kids to finish and the bus to get there, we had about 15 or 20 minutes to load up the arcade games. And we would hit those. I mean, that was almost more exciting and valuable to us than the bowling. So we would finish the bowling, couldn't care less, and before we even got those bowling shoes off, we would run to the arcade section, and we would just pump quarters into Double Dragon and Map Mania. Those are my two favorite arcade games. Um, Map Mania, just because it was wrestling, and it was a really great game, and Double Dragon, just because it was awesome. God, this hat is killing me. Oh, it's so tight. I think it's a kid's hat. I think I grabbed a kid's hat. Anyway, so we're just gonna rock this, rock that for a little while. That's right. How's this look? Is this good? Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So anyway, um, Double Dragon and Map Mania. And if you are if you remember, uh, these games weren't easy, and they especially weren't easy for an 8-year-old. So there's a pretty good chance in like Double Dragon, I'm dead in like 3 minutes. And what do I have to do? I have to throw in another quarter, and pretty much going through maybe about $2.50 before the bus was called, and we had to head back on the bus. And many times we would leave our game just in the middle of a game. You had to go. You couldn't possibly miss the bus. Are you out of your mind? So a lot of times we would just be like freaking out, like almost in tears that we got to go, right? The bus is waiting for us. We got to go. Also, Chuck E. Cheese back in the day, not today's Chuck E. Cheese, not even close, but our Chuck E. Cheese was heaven, you know. And how many of you remember the ball crawl at Chuck E. Cheese, the germ infested? I believe that's probably where coronavirus actually started. Was the ball crawl at Chuck E. Cheese in the 80s, where you would dive into this pit of plastic balls. But the Chuck E. Cheese employees would throw tokens into the ball crawl. And when you were in there, you got like 10 minutes to play around until they called you out. The next batch of kids could go in. But all you were doing the whole time was like diving for tokens. And what a glorious moment when you found a token or two or three. I mean, sometimes you grabbed a handful of tokens out of the Chuck E. Cheese ball crawl. And then again, the aides that served pizza, and had these stupid cartoon costume characters walking around. But Nobody was there for the pizza. Nobody was there for the cartoon characters. We were there because it was a gigantic arcade with all of our favorite arcade games. And that was if you got to go to Chuck E. Cheese in the 80's, you were having a good time. Chuck E. Cheese today is a gigantic waste of time and money, and it's a germ emporium. Um, I also lived on a street when I was a kid that was walking distance to a convenience store, and inside that convenience store was Spy Hunter, the arcade game. And times were a little bit different back then, and so a 9-year-old kid could walk or ride his bike to the convenience store that was about a half a mile away. Throw the 50 cents up on the counter, grab the candy bar, head over to the Spy Hunter machine, and play some Spy Hunter. Those are some fond arcade memories. Now, my first experience with the home console, I was about 6, believe it or not, and I remember it. I actually had surgery as a kid. I had eye surgery in Boston, and when I got off, when we got off the plane and landed at the airport, as I was walking through the airport with my mom, my grandparents were picking us up, and my grandparents had this package in their hands for me, and it was an Atari 2600, and I really didn't have much of an idea what this thing was. And I remember we got Pac-Man for it, and we loved it. I mean, the kid next door had Donkey Kong, so I remember borrowing Donkey Kong from him. And as an adult, people talk about the Atari and the bad games and how Pac-Man was so bad. But as a 6, 7-year-old kid, I enjoyed the heck out of it. And even still today, I enjoy Pac-Man on the Atari. Um, but yeah, bowling, we would do that. And I remember I remember getting up early, before school. And we're talking like 5:30 in the morning, just in front of this giant floor model console TV and play some Atari before school started. And then I remember, obviously I didn't know what was happening at the time, but the crash, the big Atari crash, the video game crash. I remember going to drugstores. Um, One of the drugstores in our area was called Phase. And if Tom Strickland is watching this, he's well familiar with Phase. But Phase drugstore would sell Atari games, but they were not the licensed Atari games. This is when all the other outside, no name companies could make Atari games. This is what contributed to the crash. So you got these horrible space games for like $5, and we don't know they're horrible space games because we're just a dumb kid, and we see a $5 Atari game, and more importantly, our mom sees a $5 Atari game and goes, "Oh my God, yes, but get two of those $5 Atari games." And then we get them home, and we're just staring at the screen, completely confused because we don't know what the heck to do with these off-label, off-brand, bootleg Atari space games, right? And they were always space. It wasn't like a bootleg football game that I could figure out, or a bootleg, maze chase game that I could figure out. They were always space, just dots and noises, and you're just staring at it like, what is this? And so I kind of faded out, and by the time I got to um, probably around 86, uh, maybe a little later, maybe even 87. I think I got my Nintendo in 87. And the only reason I knew about it or cared about it was because somebody brought in the NES Player's Guide, that beautiful magazine, that very early magazine that Nintendo put out within its first year, I think, of existence. And I think it's called the Complete Player's Guide or something like that. And some of you have it, and I am on the hunt for this book. It's like a $30 book, um, but it is from like 85, and it's black, so it kind of looks like the black box games. the box art for those games. Very plain, but it's got the first like 25 Nintendo games in there. And this was an awesome book as a kid. And so people would bring that into school. And that's how I first discovered the Nintendo, was by looking at this official Nintendo player's guide. And so I wanted one, but I was really late to the party. I don't remember getting one until 87. And I got it at my dad's. My parents were divorced, and I don't know, maybe my dad wanted to, like, you know, one up himself on my mom there, and took us out, and took me and my sisters out and got us a Nintendo. And he got us a Nintendo that came obviously with Mario and Duck Hunt, and we were able to get a game, and I picked Mike Tyson's Punch Out for some reason. I don't know why. And my sisters and I had a blast playing Super Mario 1, still one of the, just the classic video game that you think of when you think of Nintendo. And just hanging out at his house, and we had no idea about, warp zones and all the secrets and all that stuff. So we would just play like board by board. And I think we would get to, like, I think the furthest we ever got was like world 3, world 3 or world 4. And every world was a brand new experience. You had no idea what the heck was going on. I didn't even know how many boards there were. Like, we could just play forever. And then you start, reading the Nintendo powers and the Nintendo player guides, and you find out about where the hidden, one ups are, and the warp zone, and it was pretty much on from there. And Mike Tyson's Punch Out, I remember. Now, Mike Tyson's Punch Out is a game that it really just all memorizing patterns, and it's all muscle memory. I could play Mike Tyson's Punch Out today, and I could get to Mike Tyson and beat Mike Tyson just on muscle memory. Um, I haven't played it in a while, so I'd get to Tyson. I might not beat him right away. It took me sitting down here for like 45 minutes straight of just losing to him and learning the moves and when to dodge and all that stuff before I could finally beat him. But back as a kid, mm-mm, you're not going anywhere with that game. In fact, the guy that I couldn't get past no matter what was King Hippo, because I had no idea how to even punch him. I had no idea what to do. And then you go to school and you're complaining about it to your friends, and they throw you the Nintendo Power magazine and they go, "Hey, look, here's how you beat him." And you read about it and you learn and you rush home and you do it, and your whole life changes. Um, and I never, as a kid, I never had, success playing games. I mean, I liked a lot of sports games. I liked playing double dribble. I liked playing pro wrestling. Um, but I was never like a Zelda role playing guy ever. Like, I never actually played the original Zelda until I started, collecting games. Um, so all those, Metal Gear, I could never succeed at. So I liked, just Double Dragon style games and sports games, and I would play Bases Loaded all the time, and ice hockey and Blades of Steel, and all those fun sports games. And I never really shook that. So as I got older, um, I never had a Super Nintendo. I never had a Nintendo 64. I went right from Nintendo to Sega Genesis and would play the sports games. I would play the Madden games, and I would play the World Series baseball, because it was the first game that would, or one of the first games that would keep an entire season and standings and averages. And wow, that's so, new for that time. And that was awesome. So I loved that. I would spend many nights playing baseball games. And before you could save your stats, I would carry around a notebook. So when I played Bases Loaded, I would have like a shortened season. I'd have like a 50 game season, and I would keep all the averages and stats for all the players on my team in a notebook, and just have fun that way. Um, Again, a lot of imagination, a lot of creativity, a lot of fun. So even though I was stuck indoors playing a video game, um, I was still doing math because I was figuring out batting averages and ERAs and stuff. So those were pretty good times. And I never became a modern gamer. Um, I've always had a system in the house, but just because I thought I had to, So I was never a PlayStation guy. I've never played an Xbox. Um, we have, because of the kids, I have a Nintendo Switch in the house and I have a PS4, and our Wii is still kicking around somewhere. My Nintendo is hooked up. The Sega Genesis is hooked up. The Atari's down here. Actually, the Atari's right here. I believe this one's called the Vader. It's all black. This is the all black model. I think this is the Vader. Cute little name. But nowadays, I mean, you know, I play a game for like 15, 20 minutes before I completely lose interest. But my kid is absolutely in love with video games. He's a master. He's beaten so many games for the Switch, so many games for the Wii. He's beaten every Mario game I've gotten him. He's beat the Donkey Kong Country game. This kid is 7 years old. I, I could I couldn't figure out how to put an Atari cartridge in right side up when I was 7, and this kid is rocking Donkey Kong Country and beating it. And then the bad thing is he's like, all right, well, what's next? I just beat Mario Odyssey. Let's go get another game. But Switch has some good games. We have fun playing them, and him and I are working through a Madden season, just kind of trying to win the Super Bowl, alternating plays and things like that. But I don't know. Video games were never a huge part of my life at all. Um, they were fun. I have some Nintendo memories. I have some fun memories of playing Nintendo, late at night or early in the morning, or but it never captured me at all. I never got good at them. I never cared that much for them. So again, same thing. I put it out to you. Did you have an Atari? Were you a ColecoVision guy? Did you have an Intellivision? Were you a gamer as a kid? And what was it? When did you first experience the Nintendo? Where were you in the Nintendo versus Sega battle? I personally was a Sega guy. I loved the Sega Genesis. Um, so where did you fall? And again, tell us some of your memories. Don't watch CNN. Sit down and write another essay to me about your history with video games. And tomorrow we'll come back with another topic. I think tomorrow we're going to talk about WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania season, and the unthinkable is happening. WrestleMania is now being or has been taped. The matches have been taped from an empty arena. So WrestleMania for the first time is going to air pre-taped. This is how we know that stuff is hitting the fan. So because it's WrestleMania season, tomorrow we're going to talk about the glorious, glorious night, whether it fell in March or whether it fell in April, the glorious night of WrestleMania. And I will talk about my experience probably with the first 6 WrestleManias. Those are the ones that I can, tell some good stories about. So tomorrow we're going to talk about WrestleMania. Today, though, you're going to talk to me about your video game memories of the 80s. And I will see you all tomorrow. Good night now.